Welcome to this special presentation of Adventist News Network and the General Conference Archives on the history of camp meeting, especially in the British Isles. To Seventh-day Adventists, camp meeting may seem a distinctively Adventist event. Since Adventists are so keen on nature, what could be more natural and indeed more Adventist than getting away from houses, apartments or hotels and camping out in the country, isolated from the world, its distractions and its temptations, and enjoying fellowship and worship surrounded by the beauties of God's creation? But in fact, the camp meeting predates Adventism. Camp meetings emerged in the American West, where the vast distances meant settlers often lived considerable distances from each other. The first known camp meeting was held by Presbyterians in the American state of Kentucky in 1800. A year later, another Presbyterian camp meeting in the same state was attended by more than 10,000 people, and the idea quickly caught on with Methodists and other American denominations, and it spread away from the American frontier right across the country. Camp meeting became a distinctively American institution held every summer, and frequently different denominations' camp meetings were effectively competing with each other. The founders of the Seventh-day Adventist Church grew up with camp meetings, and the Millerites had embraced them enthusiastically in the early 1840s. But some early SDAs felt some skepticism because camp meetings, as staged by other churches, could be rowdy events with liquor flowing freely. They were such a natural fit, however, for American society in which distances were still much greater than in Britain or Europe, and in which society was very egalitarian. And this too was a contrast with the old world. For in the new world, people of all social classes could happily camp together, especially when they were engaged in worship. In addition, Seventh-day Adventists were regular, frequent users of tent meetings for evangelistic purposes. And taking all these things together, it probably was inevitable that Seventh-day Adventists would also adopt the camp meeting. Business sessions of state conferences were held in tented encampments in Wisconsin in 1867, which drew another 300 church members who came and camped. And the church leaders, under the guidance of Ellen White, decided to embrace the camp meeting. The Sixth General Conference Session in 1868, held in Battle Creek, Michigan on May 10 through 12, actually took a vote on this matter, presumably because a few Adventists still doubted whether the followers of the third angel should be indulging in camp meetings. The GC session resolved that this conference recommend to our people to hold a general camp meeting annually at the time of the sessions of our business associations. And then it added an interesting rider. It noted, camp meetings are a series of meetings held for a number of days, generally in a rural or semi-rural setting, with provision for the encampment on the grounds, a type of meeting now peculiar to the Seventh-day Adventist Church and a few other denominations. This official action cleared the way for all state conferences to hold camp meetings. And the first official SDA camp meeting was that of the Michigan Conference, held in September 1868. By the 1880s, camp meeting season was well recognized in North America and referred to in those terms in church periodicals. What, however, of the camp meeting in Europe and Britain? The first camp meeting held in Britain was on 31st of May 1807 near the city of Stoke-on-Trent, and it was staged by Methodists who had been prompted by a charismatic and controversial American revivalist preacher, Lorenzo Dow, who was visiting England. Now, the Wesleyan Methodist authorities considered such gatherings highly improper, but a group of Methodists went ahead anyway, and one result was the formation of a new denomination, the Primitive Methodists. However, camp meetings did not catch on in England. And 80 years later, for the subjects of Her Britannic Majesty Queen Victoria, they were truly an alien concept, one the American Adventist missionaries who arrived in the 1880s had to work hard to sell to the locals. Present Truth, the journal founded by Adventists in Great Britain, reported in 1884 on a series of Adventist camp meetings in Missouri, Minnesota, Tennessee, and California, all in America, of course, and noted that the largest meeting ever held in Michigan was held in the city of Jackson, September 18 through 30. We fancy that it would be a novel sight to our English readers to behold one of these encampments. No doubt the English readers would have been astonished at the lavish scale on which the tent gathering was held. These were not primitive events. Another report in Present Truth, which reprinted an article from an American Adventist periodical, observed, "A telephone connects us with the city." Remember, this is 1884. "And with the world. Water is supplied through pipes from the city waterworks. A provision stand and boarding tent supply shop are available at moderate cost to those who wish it, and a special post office receives and distributes mail." And all this, of course, was facilitated by the hot and largely dry weather that could generally be counted on in the summer in the United States, unlike in England. The first Seventh-day Adventist camp meeting held outside the United States had been in Canada in 1879. The first outside North America was held at Moss in eastern Norway in June 1887. Now, J.N. Loughborough had used a 60-foot tent for evangelistic meetings in Southampton, in England, in 1879, but those were not meetings for Adventists. In contrast, the camp meeting at Moss was promoted as an event for all Seventh-day Adventists across Europe to attend, and it was also advertised to British Seventh-day Adventists in Present Truth. It was regarded as having been so successful, such a great blessing to the church and to the cause at large, as one report put it, that the following summer, in 1888, the Central European Conference organized its first camp meeting, held at Upper Tramelan in Switzerland, which was still more successful, being attended by even more people, both Adventists and by the public in general. But it's interesting that Present Truth felt the need to add, for those who are unacquainted with camp meetings, a description of the encampment at Tramelan. This explained that there were two large tents, one used exclusively for public meetings and one used partly as a boarding house for the colporteurs and missionary workers, including a dining room. And then it adds, there were 6 family tents, from 6 to 8 persons occupying each tent. Now, this was a very small encampment by American standards, but between 100 and 150 other Adventists took rooms in the village of Tramelan. And the chief reason why the number of those camping was so few is because the believers who came from various parts of Switzerland, Germany, and France did not realize that they needed to bring tents. The report in Present Truth observed, "Another year the brethren will know what will be required, and better provision will be made." And this testifies to the extent that camp meetings were still a strange phenomenon in Europe, so much so people didn't quite realize they were supposed to camp. Yet in the next 10 years, they spread across Europe and became regular annual events. And Adventists in the British Isles were aware of this. By 1899, we can speculate that there was an increasing interest among British Adventists in a camp meeting because the annual Swiss camp meeting, which was held that year in Lausanne, advertised in Present Truth that it would hold a meeting in English on each Sunday and that there would be health foods for sale. Nevertheless, no camp meeting was held in Britain before the 20th century. In the end, the first camp meeting held in Britain was at Wanstead in March 1902, though it was only for the London area, and some participants call it the London Camp Meeting, though there was no London Conference at that time. But it was regarded as a great success with huge spiritual blessings for all those who attended. And so as a result, church leaders decided to hold a Britain-wide camp meeting the subsequent summer. They reprinted in the Missionary Worker, a magazine which by now supplemented Present Truth, an article by Ellen White in which she wrote, "The camp meeting is one of the most important agencies in our work. It is one of the most effective methods of arresting the attention of the people. The Lord has instructed us that the camp meeting is one of the most important instrumentalities for the accomplishment of His work, and especially in promoting spiritual life among our own people." Issues of both the British SDA periodicals reveal that there was great interest in and anticipation for this first British camp meeting, and in August 1902 it met at Leeds. General Conference President Arthur G. Daniels was there attending, and the business of the camp meeting is notable because it was here that the British mission became the British Union Conference. From a spiritual and social perspective as well, though, the camp meeting was unquestionably a great success. The next year, 1903, the first camp meeting in Wales was held at Newport in August. But in addition, another British Union camp meeting was also held, and for the next 33 years, the British Union camp meeting was an annual event except during the 4 years of the First World War. Britain was unusual in that it was a union camp meeting, not a conference camp meeting. It was a popular event, including with children and youth, as this photograph from the camp meeting held at Stanborough Park in August 1936 indicates. However, in the mid-1930s, the financial situation of the British Union was extremely weak, a result of the effects of the Great Depression. And whether for good or ill, the decision was taken to save money by discontinuing camp meeting. At first it was supposed to be a temporary measure. However, the camp meeting held in 1936 was the last to be held in Britain for 46 years. Not until 1982, thanks to the leadership of Silburn Reed, president of the South England Conference, was the institution of camp meeting reintroduced to the British Isles. As one participant recalled, the first camp meeting was held at Rockley Sands near Poole in Dorset. 3,000 believers braved the October elements, slept in chalets, and imbibed spiritual blessings by the hour in a heated marquee. And in October in Britain, chalets and a heated marquee were probably the right way to go. Another participant writing in 2000 recalled that British church members still talk with revered fondness about that camp meeting in Poole and the pouring rain that accompanied it. It became a regular annual event. And 4 years later, Ron Surridge, president of the North British Conference, as it then was, followed South England's lead and reinstituted an annual camp meeting, with the first being held in 1986 at Caton Bay near Scarborough. This year then we celebrate the 110th anniversary of the British camp meeting. What's its future? It's hard to predict, but let's remember Ellen White's words that few things are as important for the work of the church as the camp meeting.